Well, I can't see everybody that's there. I can see a few people online. This looks like a great program. I'm not going to try to run the meeting from here. So I'll just turn over to Dennis, except for just a few words to start out with, which is about the upcoming trip that Dennis has been haranguing everyone about to the Philippines with emails. And I just wanted to start off the show with that and make sure everybody understands what's going on there. I guess the main point to make is this is a little different from a land-based type of trip. It's something that HUPS has never tried to do before, actually. And so Dennis and I have been schooled now in the ways of what it takes to get half a boat or something like that. And it's a little different from the land situation. They, are not so forgiving with time to get your act together. So we're in a situation where if it's going to be a HUPS group trip, probably in the next week or so, we're going to have to get the full cash payment from everybody, which will be non-refundable because we don't have any options to the club to get refunds at later dates. So having said that, maybe I shocked everyone into listening, but it's not quite as bad as you might think, because you've got a year. If somebody has to drop out, there's a very good chance that their space could be filled, and then they could be reimbursed when that happens. And also we talked to the people at Atlantis, and should someone have to drop out, they assured me that they would make their best efforts to make the space available on their websites. And so I think it's a low probability that if someone had to back out, that they would just be stuck with it. But I'm always I've experienced the worst case scenario several times in my life, so I don't want to have anybody go into it without understanding everything involved. Dennis, you want to say a few words about that?
Well, right now it looks like, if I'm counting the number of votes that we have, 10 or 11 people have said that they will be willing to pay. I didn't say gracefully pay, but they will. And so I think that we have a trip. We just need to go ahead and ask for the money. And once Debbie has it in the bank account, and we can send the first deposit down to the Atlantis group, we will be committed.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's great. I mean, we have a few minor details there. And we can kind of take this offline, but what complicates it is they sell the boat either like as a half a boat, 3/4 of a boat, or a full boat. So it sounds like right now we're one shy of having a full boat. I'm sorry, a 3/4 full boat. So we'll have to talk amongst ourselves and with them to figure out exactly how we're going to do that. Because the discounts that we get, the free person type discounts have these step functions. You get one when you have 8 people paid, you get 2 when you have 12 people paid, and you get 3 if you got 16 people who are going. So anyway, that's great news, Dennis. Now we can just get the cash out of these suckers. That'll.
Yeah. Well, we'll get an arm bar on Justin down there and get him on too.
Okay, well, having said, that's the main thing I wanted to mention to people. It looks like an absolutely super trip. I mean, it's the kind of thing that it doesn't exist out there on the websites to book right now. We told them what we wanted to do, and they've arranged this. And you're going to be able to hit the high spots in the Visayas area. Oh my God, look at this.
There are 2 Justins on the call, by the way, so I'm not too sure which one Dennis was talking about.
I think Justin Jr. is saying he wants to go on the trip. Justin Jr. wants to go on the trip. That's why he's speaking up.
Yeah, you want to go? You have to ask your mommy.
Absolutely.
He looks like an owl.
Yeah.
Betsy says he looks like Val, thank God. Just a little kid there. All right, Dennis, I'm ready to let you take it away.
Well, I'm going to ask to see, I know we have one guest, maybe anybody else think? Yeah, we have a guest over here. No, you've been around. Yeah. But over here. We have over here, we have a guest. Tell us about yourself. Here, there we go.
I'm Celia Chipman, and I've always been fascinated with the water. And I'm very interested in what you're doing here.
Have you been diving before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, you're certified and ready
I
to go.
was. I haven't been for several years.
Have you gone and bought yourself a camera by any chance?
No.
It's okay.
But you did with Oceanic Ventures.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. All right, well, do you have something you want to say about the trip?
The Bonaire trip?
Yeah, just a second. There we go.
You need to say.
Or I can say.
I can say it.
I just sent the email in to Captain Don's to finalize our rooming list. We have 12 divers, 2 non-divers. So we'll get at least 1 free spot plus a little bit of commission. So everybody, you will have a little bit coming back to you after the trip is over. And we're all set. I will send out one more email for everybody when it gets a little closer. The new visitors tax we have to pay, which can't be done until like a week ahead of time. And then the marine park fee, which you have to pay online now. But other than that, it's all a go. It'll be a good group.
Would you like to comment a little bit about payment to HUPS for deposits and things? I know you've been working on.
Oh, yeah.
Venmo.
For trips and such, the best way to do it, if your bank participates, is to do Zelle. It's bank to bank and there's no fees associated with it. I've set up a Gmail account for the club. You just use that and the money goes straight into the HUPS checking account and no fees on either end. We also can take PayPal, but for trips, we have to get the full amount. Therefore, to keep the club whole, I have to add back in the fees that PayPal charges us, which is roughly 4% thereabouts. But then you have the ability, what I can do then is generate an invoice that includes that extra fee and send it to you. You just click on that and you can pay by credit card if you'd like. And then that would give you whatever trip protections your credit card would have too, or you could get your miles or whatever, but it would cost roughly 4% extra. I was working on to see if I could do a Venmo account for the club, but it's not working real well. I have to set up a personal account and then I've got to give all the club stuff associated though with my personal account and the information they want. I'm not comfortable setting it up. It's just not set up for our type of association. So that would have been better because it's only a 2% fee.
Yeah, but you'll still take paper, right?
And I will definitely still take paper checks.
I wanted to let Jackie say something since she hasn't been with us for a little while. She is our local talent on fashion photography underwater.
I'm really glad to be back. I started working shortly after the last meeting and I've just traveled so much and not for for photography, but not underwater. So I really do miss it. I haven't actually been back in a pool in a year, but I did get to go to Florida a year ago and shoot pictures in the springs and in a pool. And I loved it. I definitely want to get back to it. Try to get a pool in my backyard, but the cost of that has gone up almost double since COVID. So I got a car instead. But I'm really glad to see what's going to happen tonight.
Yeah, I wanted to also ask, have we had some people have been diving? Cuba, well, didn't we already talk about Cuba last time? Last meeting, yeah, we had 18 people that went. And some of us actually came back well. Yeah, we had a couple of people that came back with COVID and 2 more came down with it on the trip. And we had Jan broke a foot and came back and got what was it, the chicken pox, the stuff like that. Not- Shingles. She got shingles as well. So, but other than that, it was pretty good. We had some giant.
Bites.
Yeah, we had plenty of Hoodia bites as well. So. No crocodile bites, not at all. Okay, is that it? Nobody else been diving?
I've been diving. I still can't get my camera to work, so you're lucky. Yeah, I just got back a week ago from a week in Key Largo with the Adaptable group. We wound up with 14 people on the trip. And I would say roughly a third of those were adaptive divers. We had several vets that had PTSD and various other ailments, and we had 2 wheelchair users. And other than the weather not cooperating, we had a great trip. Out of the 5 days of diving, we got 3.
Wow. Okay, well, it becomes an expensive trip. Not as expensive as the one that Craig and Betsy had.
Yeah, on a cost per dive basis, I think Craig and Bips are going to be hard to beat.
Now, adaptable divers, which
I thought I was asking if it was the Waves program. That's something I just applied to, that I'm gonna do my diving certification. It's for veterans. That's why I thought you were talking.
which group do you work through, Joe?
I work with 2 different groups. One of them is called Adaptable, and they're based in Fort Worth. And the other one is called Dive Heart, and they're based in Chicago.
Delegated?
Is Dive Pirates affiliated with any of those, or is that completely separate?
Dive Pirates is based in Houston, and I tried for 2 years to join them, and I never could get anybody to call me back, so I gave up and went elsewhere. So yes, they are active in the Houston area. Personal opinion, never having actually met any of them, but from what I've seen online, they like their parties.
Ah,
We're going this weekend to Cozumel with Life Waters group, and quite excited about it because of the work they're doing with handicapped divers.
Yeah,
Are you familiar with Life Waters?
Yeah, Life Waters, I think does or is in communication with Adaptable in Fort Worth. I remember seeing something about that.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna make a kind of an off the cuff comment about the next year's film festival. It's coming up early April, so if you have any videos, and you guys out there in Florida land, I know you got some videographers in there. You need to start submitting some videos to the Houston Underwater Film Festival, or HUPS as we call it. It's an international operation. We have sometimes 22 to 26 different countries that are represented, and I think 6 different categories now. It's a lot of fun. Okay.
Hey, Dennis,
any other comments?
Dennis,
Yes.
while we're on videos, I think Betsy might like to say a word or two about the new video contest rules.
Please do.
Yeah. Okay, here she is.
Hey, okay, we have got a new set of video contest rules for our fall video contest. And basically, we have a new category, which is up to 1 minute. And the people who are allowed to submit videos to that contest are anyone who has not won the regular contest that we've been doing for several years. And there's probably about 5 or 6 different people who have come in first place in that contest. And those guys are not allowed to compete in the 1-minute video contest. So I urge you guys to start getting your short video clips together or sequence of video clips together to enter in that contest. And also I'm going to be putting together the January Anything Goes video night. So please also send me your clips for the Anything Goes night. Those videos can be used in both of these settings. You can use it both in the contest and in the video night, because the clips that we're going to use in the Anything Goes video night are going to be anonymous. So therefore it won't it won't have any problem with the video contest rules and our anonymity rules. So just to remind you, the fall video contest deadline is October 1st.
I have a request to anybody that's listening. I'm looking for one more presenter for this year. So if you have ideas, let me know. I'll get in touch. I've had a couple of people that I've talked to, but haven't been able to make a connection quite yet. Okay, anything else? Any other announcements? Greg, anything?
No, I'm done.
Okay, well, then I guess we're going to get on with Rick McCawley. He is going to be our presenter tonight, and he lives down in Southern Florida. He's an active member of the Southern Florida Underwater Photographic Society, and he has numerous things on his resume that would suggest that he's exactly what we need for this type of a workshop type of presentation, because he's going to be talking to us tonight about his specialty, which is digital imaging and the ability to judge and to evaluate good photographs and how to make them better. So Rick, I'm going to turn it over to you right now. So I'm going to turn off the lights.
All right. Hello, Houston. How y'all doing out there? All right. So yeah, I'm Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So I've been a SWUPS member for 35 years, actually. When I first started the Miami Herald and moved down here, that was the first place that I got in touch with it. So I'm going to start off with a video just for a little bit of fun. And then I'll go into the whole critique process. And so what we're looking forward to tonight is I'm going to talk with words about why certain photographs are better than others. And it can give you a set of evaluation skills so you can then go out and evaluate any photograph. The book I'm working on right now is my top 100 photographs, create and critique. So basically my fundamental thing for you all tonight, and if you look in the meeting chat while the video is going on, you might want to download the Dropbox. It's a copy of tonight's PowerPoint presentation, and it has the criteria by which I'm using to judge every single photograph. I have 5 books in the works right now. The first one's on underwater photography, and I'll show you a little bit of what it's going to look like and what it will be. I'm doing one on photojournalism, one on travel photography, and then I think I might be doing one on fashion. So these are all going to be PDFs with interactive parts to it. So you get to follow the links to other information. Videos will be embedded in it, and they'll be available as a Dropbox type of thing. The days of trying to publish a hardcover book is kind of, gone. This is too darned expensive, but there will be a coffee table book of all the best photographs of my life. I've been shooting for 50 years. So since I was 14, well, I guess next year will be 50 years. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start here with a little video, make sure everybody can see what I'm doing here. this off. ID. Okay, here we go. That's me. Okay. Can everybody hear that okay?
Yeah, that was fine.
Yeah, we heard it. It was fine.
Okay. The last picture there is the whale shark scientist who was on the other side of the whale shark, and she's doing a sonogram on this pregnant 60-foot long whale shark, just to give you an idea. So that's the start of it. This was by far, I think, the best dive of my entire life, actually, with maybe some exceptions, but we'll take a look at that here in a minute. So I'm going to start with the PowerPoint presentation. Everybody can see the top 100 underwater photos?
Hey, Rick, I have a question.
Yeah.
When you were showing, when the sound came on that one clip, were you actually firing away with your camera? Was that the camera noise?
Oh, yeah. That's the camera noise. Absolutely. I think I had about 800 photographs from that 30-second encounter. It was at the end of a dive. We were about 40 minutes into the dive at 85 foot. And this guy, he literally hit me in the back of my neck coming around the corner. I backed off and just shot. And that's the GoPro is always mounted on top of my camera as well. So that's kind of how that happened. All right. So let me, yeah, that Socorro is a fantastic dive place. A couple of things while we're doing this. Again, if you go to look in the meeting chat, there's the link to the PowerPoint. So what you're looking at right here is what you'll have at home that you can take a look at later on. The QR code there on the screen is all of my links. And in fact, if you just put my name, Rick McCawley, in Google, you'll have about 60 pages of content to look at. But I mainly work on Facebook as far as social media is concerned. I do have Instagram and Twitter and all the rest of them, and a YouTube channel. Those are the two places that you can see this presentation. And I think part of the way you all found out about me is I did this same presentation. I've improved it and upgraded it just for you guys because it's a Houston special here, right? So there's a couple of changes that are different, but that way you can get in touch with me. And then when the book finally does come out, in fact, I watched the presentation I did for SWUPS on my YouTube channel, and it was a year ago, pretty much to the date. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. So this is what the book will look like. And the idea of all of these books is I take the top 100 photographs that I've selected, and I've been extremely critical. It's very difficult when you've shot as many as I have to break it down to just 100 pictures, and then telling you why those are the best 100 photographs of my life. The cover you could see there was near Roca Partida, and it was just in a very shallow cove dive right before we did it. So I was certified at 14, and age 17, you see me there with my U.S. Divers Jacques Cousteau outfit and horse collar BC and a J valve that you used for just a little bit more air. And then at age 60 in Palau diving. To give you a little bit of idea about me, I'm now a senior professor of graphic design at Broward College in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I have been for 23 years now. and I've made over 2,700 dives at the moment, and always looking to do more. So as a staff member of the Miami Herald for 15 years, actually, if you include my internship, I photographed riots. I dove on the Atocha, which will show you some pictures. I was the first underwater diver with Mel Fisher, and I got the exclusive photograph of him finding a treasure chest. And I also got a coin, which we'll talk about in a bit. I lived in a trailer park after Hurricane Andrew, and took pictures with the very first digital cameras from Kodak, and submitted all my pictures with a 10-foot satellite dish. And we won a Pulitzer Prize for our service team, public service, for the coverage of that. I photographed the first space shuttle launch, bunch of presidents, all the football, basketball that you could possibly do. I published over 30 books now, and this is an old slide, I guess, and on underwater photography, on textbooks for graphic design, UX, UI. I'm working on my second book on artificial intelligence I'm doing now. So publishing is kind of where when I left the Herald, I actually paginated the entire Miami Herald and saw it go digital. And then I decided consulting was a lot bigger paycheck. So I went and did that for a while, set up programs at Barry University, International Fine Arts College, and then went and got my master's degree from Barry University in photography and an MFA from Florida Atlantic University. Here's just a couple of fun places I've been diving around the world. And as you saw, that very first picture, Socorro down here, me photographing the manta, we were able to not only sonogram a pregnant whale shark, we tagged 2 whale sharks that were both pregnant with 1-year-long satellite tags. And then we also tagged 17 manta rays, and we got to name 7 of them because they had not been photographed before. We did belly shots of all of them, then submitted them. And while we're out on the boat, I love doing citizen science stuff. So if you got any dives that you know of where that's a possibility. I grew up in Gainesville. I was an Army brat, so lived in Okinawa, Japan, lived in Greece, all over the world. And my dad sold insurance in Gainesville, Florida. So the Springs were where I grew up at 14 years of age in my Volkswagen Beetle and, Ned Deloach's dive guide, and went to 67 Springs, I think, in a couple of years. So it was an every weekend kind of thing. So what we're going to talk about tonight is how do you break down what a photograph is? I want to insist that you think about, because there's such noise pollution, visual pollution. So many people are taking photographs. In one solid day, there's more photographs uploaded to the internet than from 1990 to the beginning of photography, to give you an idea. I produce images at an extraordinary rate. And the reason why I got it down to 100 is because you just have to. Nobody wants to sit through all your boring photographs. And so what I'm going to do is break this down for you and start off by thinking about how light, composition, creativity, storytelling, all of these different things can help you make better photographs. So when you get back from shooting pictures, you sit there and you look through 1,000 photographs or 10,000 or whatever it is, and you try to pick which ones you're going to actually. I got a feedback there. Okay. Oops. Is there something going on with the voice? I hear it coming back at me. Okay. Well, let's see if I can go. Is anybody else hearing that, or is it just me?
There's a little bit of it.
Okay. If you have any questions as I'm going along, just put it in the chat. I've got it sitting on my second desktop right here.
You're okay. So. You're okay now, Rick. It was a
great. Thank you.
thing.
Yeah. Okay. So storytelling, there's things like virtuosity and gesture and humor, the decisive moment. We'll talk about that. Emotion, mystery. And so this is what the book is going to look like. I'm showing you basically a couple of pages. Now I can't get this to go forward here. Okay, there we go. Negative space, leading lines, etc. So rule of thirds, framing, cropping. So this is what the book is going to look like. On the right-hand side of the page will be the photograph. On the left-hand side is going to be the story about making the photograph and details about it. The critique photographically, and this one is about light, composition, creating a sense of depth, rule of thirds, creativity. So the layered planes of the photograph, starting with the soft corals in the foreground, the Goliath grouper, and then the diver in the background. And then in each one, I have the story of the animal or the environment, what's unique about it, the location of everything, the technical notes. Most of them are Nikon D500 Nauticum housing, 2 Inon Stros, 230s. I'm going to get ready to upgrade now. And I usually use, Macro 60 and Tokina, but I've started using for some animals a kit lens from Nikon. I think it's 11 to 55 or something, or 17 to 55, because the distortion of sharks and that sort of thing is just too much with the Tokina to make it worthwhile for my particular taste. And then I'll add a little bonus thing. So everyone is involved so there you can see this is actually the page from the book as it will appear. So it tells you the depth of the water and the shutter speed and a story about the animals. So I'm still finishing it. It started a year ago. So it takes a little while to get through this. I don't know why it's all of a sudden going back and doing the same ones again here. Okay. So this is the reason why I wanted you to download the PowerPoint, because these are the words that I used in 2 areas: creativity and storytelling, and composition. So these are the words that you can apply when you're looking at a photograph, and you can use them to analyze. If you want to take a screenshot, if you're on your computer at home, just do a quick screenshot or download the PowerPoint, and you'll have all the details there about this. So I'm going to go through each one of these and how that works. So let's start off with creativity. It's a unique visual combination of elements and or subject that are uniquely original from any other image. The opposite is opposite of a cliche. So this photograph, it's just a pier dive right off of Wakatobi. If those familiar with Wakatobi, it's a really high-end, very expensive private island dive resort that's the best shore dive I've ever made in my life. And God bless Blue Heron Bridge, but this thing knocks the pants off of that. So it's the sunset, and I'm just snorkeling. This little starfish just made a nice juxtaposition. Also, a color contrast. You've got multiple subjects. You've got the rock, you've got the starfish, and you've got the sunset all kind of working together. Story is definitely the thing. The story of this is Mel Fisher, the day he found the Etosha after a 20 some odd year search for it. He lost his son and his daughter-in-law to accidents, lost all of his money. In fact, the week before he found it, today was the day, he actually had to sell his Cadillac to make enough money to pay his bills. So over $4 billion worth of treasure, and this is the only photograph of him on the wreck itself. And what you see before you is what I found while he and I were looking. So at that time, all the boats were in one part of the over the wreck, and they were photographing it and then bringing up 70-pound silver bars while everybody else was doing that. And I had to go get him off a bar stool at 7 o'clock in the morning. And then go out to the Marquesas Islands where this is, in about 30, 40 foot of water, and just a pile about 100 foot long of 70-pound bars of silver and the ballast around that. The really unique thing about the story was they had started their search in that exact location. So the fact was that after all that time of searching, if they had just had the right magnetometers at the time, so what happened is when they went over that area, it had been used for naval shelling practice. So there were metal shells all over the place. So they'd go down once the magnetometers ping, 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 and they'd find nothing. They'd find nothing. They'd find nothing. They got really frustrated. Evidently, they passed right over this. So they had to wait 20 years to finally get there, which is kind of sad. So at first I found he was showing me how to wave your hand to kind of, this is all ballast from the boat that you see to the right there. But that piece you see there right in front of you is a silver box of coins. You can see the right angles. So I first discovered just a rock that I thought was a rock, and he starts screaming underwater. And it turns out to be the first silver coin that had fallen out of the chest. As we were moving over, I then uncovered the pieces of wood. And then he came over and I got a picture. This is with a Nikon 4, I think, at the time, with a 15 millimeter lens and a subsea 150 strobe. That was it, 36 exposures. This was exposure number 30. And I had a couple other pictures, but back up on top and then photographing some more pictures. Composition. So these are, sea lions. The position, organization of subjects and objects in the frame. It's as important as what is in the frame and what you leave outside of the frame. So we want a clean frame that has subject matter galore, that tells us a story, that doesn't waste my time with telling me anything extraneous. So we've got the sea lions, we've got their environment, we've got nice blue sky, and we've got the playful gesture or movement. And you'll hear me talk about that in a minute. Light, contrast, the quality, direction, the hardness or softness of light, the light sources, where you put your strobes. And I'm going to have some comments when I'm critiquing your all's work. A lot of underwater photographers just kind of put their strobes at 10 and 2 and give this very front light kind of look. I would suggest, especially with macro stuff, you start to work your lights way off to the edges or backlighting or potentially snooting things and then also backlighting it. Light up the environment around the animal so you can get a sense of context. So the whole feeling of this manta is really made into this angelic creature with the starburst behind it. And they were basically just coming through and feeding like an airplane landing strip. And I sat behind a rock. This is in Bali, at Nusa Penida, and they just kept going over my head. This is in Palau, and the quality, direction, light, the hardness, the softness of the light. And again, I've got multiple subject matter here, right? We've got the diver just relaxing and enjoying this 100-foot dive with these shafts of light that just, this is the cathedral of God. To me, this is my religion right here. Nature is my religion, and I really, I think we need to protect it as much as we can. Virtuosity. So technical aspects of how you're making the photograph. Is it an original photograph? You've never seen something like that before. Technically, getting the exposure right on this was quite a trick. This is in Jenny Springs in Florida. That's my roommate, and I had brought the cloth with me. And we were there late at night and stayed around for a while. And so I'm snorkeling. I had not brought my scuba gear this particular trip. So I'm snorkeling to this crevasse in the second kind of part of Jenny. And so making that photograph, makes a statement, whether you want to call it sort of a Jesus moment or, in praise of whatever. It's a beautiful photograph. And I've done a book on called Water Woman that this is a part of. And it's about celebrating both water and women as a source of all life, both for humans and for all of us on this planet, and how much we need to protect, revere, and honor them in everything that we do. And we haven't done such a great job of it. The decisive moment. So this is something that even in photojournalism is where it got created, but it also works in this regards, right? So it's Henry Cartier-Bresson's invention. He was a French photographer during the 40s. He was in Nazi Germany, photographed and created Magnum Picture Agency. If you're all familiar with their work, if you're not, you should be. Go look up MAGNUM. Photo agency, and it's world renowned. It was created in the 50s, 40s, I think 40s actually, after the war, by him and Robert Capa and other ones. And it basically was it is the best photographers in the planet doing documentary and photojournalism. So photography is a simultaneous recognition in a fraction of a second of the significance of events, as well as of a precise organization of forms, and that's composition, right? Which give that event its proper expression. So the meaning comes from the movement and the gesture in this photograph, the diagonal composition, the thrusting through the water. So I'm hanging over the side of the boat as they're dropping little chum to these guys, and I shot probably 1,000 photographs. My arm was really just exhausted because literally he's hanging over the boat, just shooting right into the water. No strobes or anything, just waiting and hoping and praying. And this was by far the best photograph. So there's texture there, there's movement of the fins, there's just a lot going on. Gesture. So when a dancer is trying to express themselves, they move their arms and their limbs and their legs and move their face and their body, and they contort. They use the space. So gesture is basically the movement of the body or pose or object even. Even the kelp forest, the movement of the kelp in a certain direction can show you how the water is moving across that kelp. So it can create an emotionality. This was a young sea lion that played with me for 25 minutes. There was a 20-foot surge over my head. This was literally death-defying for me as a photographer. I got spectacular video that I have on my YouTube channel if you want to take a look at it there. So it's about, finding ways to put forms within your photograph, and gesture is one of those storytelling elements that you can use the same way that dancers do. Behaviors. We want to look at pictures that are unusual. We haven't seen that before. I've never seen a photograph taken by anybody else that's quite like this. I just came around the corner and there's the rock and there's the lizard fish with this little guy in his mouth and chomping away. And so he was dead already. And I think he struggled probably before I got there. But so it's, you're kind of witnessing something and it's just kind of unusual and a bit shocking. And so it's got a little something going on. The emotion, when you feel happiness and sadness. So all of these ideas that I'm talking about why we like photographs come from this guy named Dennis Dutton. If you get a chance, look at his TED Talk. He talks about aesthetics being biological, going back to Darwin. What do we care about? We care about in performance, right? What do we call beauty is what he talks about. We call beauty a performance of a dancer. We call beauty a soccer goal. We call beauty a diamond. We call beauty photographs like this, where this Ridley turtle is being released by the folks at Wakatobi. They had raised it to, I think 8-10 months, something like that. And then we got a chance to release them into the water, and it was quite spectacular. The guy kept wanting to come back to shore, unfortunately, but we finally got him out the deep end. And Ridley turtles are a real kind of a deep end kind of animal. And it was kind of a rare thing to see Ridleys in the area, and to have one that they found nested and then raised it for a little bit, not realizing they should have just let it back in the ocean. It would have been just fine. But it was kind of cool to be able to do this. And so my friend there's giving a high five. So you've got emotion, you've got storytelling, and then you've got humor, which is always the best thing to do with any kind of, the first 3 Star Wars, what did it have? It had humor. The other ones, Jar Jar Binks really wasn't that funny. It's actually kind of racist, I think. But so, it's humor, right? That's what gets us through the day. So what's really funny about this, and you can kind of already tell, these dolphins, this is Roca Partida again, they were 100 foot away. And all of a sudden I see this one on the top, just kind of looking over at me from way far away, way, way far away. And then he looks over at his pals there, these 3 other little musketeers. And then he beelines it over to me, and right in front of the camera, he poops. So there you go. Mystery. We always love a good mystery, right? So what the heck is this? Now, you divers probably know what it is. It's a giant basket star. This is about 10 foot across. It was a night dive. And as soon as we brought our lights out, this first little one just kind of cringed up. And then by the time we had left, it was the size of a basketball, from 10 feet to the size of a basketball, because our lights had illuminated and attracted exactly the fish that they like to eat. So a photo that challenges you to wonder, what are you looking at? Like an abstract, or it leaves you to question what it means, or what kind of animal is that? And then just pleasure, the visceral eye candy, the sensuality expressed in subtlety, or explicitly in this case. So this is a Persian carpet worm, and it just sat there like doing the 7-veiled dance. It undulated through the water. It was the sexiest damn worm I've ever seen in my life. And it was really fun to watch it. And I think still with the gesture involved, and that means the literal movement, that U shape that the body of the animal is making at this one moment, it kind of captures what the feeling was of it moving. I did have video, but it wasn't anywhere near as charming and interesting. The thing about a still photographer that differentiates it from video is you can hold on to that moment. If you pick the right moment, it's better than the video. And there's many, many cases where a photojournalist and, it's starting to be that everything we see is in video. But if you go back and look at the Hindenburg, there is video in color, actually, of it coming down. If you look at the, certainly in modern day 9/11 was videotaped, but there's still photographs that haunt you to this day. They're iconic and they remain in your memory much longer than videos do. Composition, we talked about that, where you put things and organizing subjects within the frame. And this is the rule of thirds. If you're not familiar with, it's like a tic-tac-toe board. And the way we read is we go from left to right to down to right again, or in this case, we're going around in a U shape. So the flow and the subject matter are at the intersection points. So since your eyes always move in that Z pattern, since you're reading a book, right? Your eyes are trained to kind of follow things that follow that pattern. So if you put interesting action points at those areas, you can produce something very well. Framing a picture. So that means you take the environment that this animal lives in, and you include the fish and the coral and everything else, and you can frame it amongst that. You can use this as a framing device of a cave entrance. You can use the framing device of a sea fan. Whatever it is, you want to create a multiple layer effect with a photograph. Multiple subjects are always better than just one. If I did a portrait of this animal, it's gorgeous. It would be spectacular. But I've got not only him and his environment, but the spectacular environment in which he lives in, and his face and his portrait all together by framing through some other part. Always get closer. As Robert Capa said, the war photographer said, if your pictures aren't good enough, you're not close enough. And that definitely is the case. So yeah, crop the frame, get everything to be as simple as you can. We are conditioned to respond to simplicity. If you look at every logo, I teach graphic design, that's ever been done, McDonald's and Nike, etc., less is more. And you can see on this, because it's so clear, it's the sort of this happy dolphin shape, which is wonderful, but all the scratch marks from play and sex that this dolphin has been having. So not only is it showing this crystal clear picture of this dolphin that's just fun to look at, it's kind of a flipper-esque moment, right? But also the scratch marks from the behaviors that had occurred. So there's your depth of layers. You've got a foreground object, and then you can see how far back and how big it is. So you get a sense of scale and size because there's this depth. The darkness of the foreground videographer and then the photographers in the background being a much lighter gray shows you how deep it was, what the clarity of the water is, and really tells the story as well. Using negative space. So again, there's the animal. It just happened to be beautifully placed against a nice black background. It looks like I could have spotted out some of the backscatter here a little bit, but I do like to use black and white photography occasionally because I just think sometimes it's about the shapes and the forms. When we design logos, we start with the shape and the form first. And once we've got that perfect, in fact, I think if you go out and you look at all your pictures in black and white, it has to have the shape and the form to support the color that is sort of thoughtfully added afterwards. We go looking for color candy all the time, and we stop and forget to think about storytelling or textures or things like that we might be able to. Like the silence of music, it could be elegant. It could provide a contrast of meaning. So you have a loud piece of music and then a soft piece of music. So you've got this environment. Leading lines, so these lines going through in one direction can lead people eyes along a path to multiple subjects. It's also called a crash point. So you can see these lines lead down into the basket's core. And so you can see how the animal's outstretched. Juxtaposition. Now I took this picture and then I was processing that night. I did not see the whale shark. Yeah, you can't believe it. It did take me a bit, and it works much better as a black and white than a color. The colors were basically all blues. When it got to black and white, I could bring out the whale shark. And so you've got this huge sense of scale. The rule of thirds. So the hammerhead's right in the center, but that whale shark's in the bottom third corner there. And the juxtaposition of the whale shark and the hammerhead and the number of other fish in the sea just made a spectacular piece there. All right, so let me talk about your pictures. So if you want to chat in the meeting chat there, if you want to type any questions that you have, if this is your photograph, I'd love for you to come on and talk about it as well. So a couple things I want to just say about it. When we talked about behavior and color, so we've got, you know, a cleaning station. You've got the open mouth, you've got the color, you've got a lot of really great photographs here. I like it a lot. The only sort of annoying thing is that maybe it could be cropped a little bit tighter. I think that's dead zone over here on the left and on the right as well. But in here, where everything's going on, this could be either a very tight photograph where you really can see these coral shrimp in there. But I think the one thing that's bugging me is this sponge coming out here. So that's the only thing that, so movement over to the right a little bit, maybe even going vertical could make an extraordinary photograph. Also think about, looks like the strobe's off to the right, far right, and there's one off to the left. The one off to the left, sometimes I'll actually turn one off, and so I get directional lighting. There's a nice thing that you've filled in this area of the body here with light, but then we're illuminating stuff that we really probably don't want illuminated. So thinking about snooting or perhaps putting sort of barn doors on your strobes or positioning them in different locations you don't think about can give us much more unusual photographs that are can be award winning. Okay, this one, composition, juxtaposition, fantastic. You got great depth of field. So you've got a foreground object, you've got the reef line, you've got the diver, then you've got this beautiful top of the ocean surface. Fantastic. Gesture of the diver could probably be a little bit better. It's when you go out on a dive and you're going to include divers, have them dress the part, you know, and if your buddy's not dressed the part, get somebody else who is. So I went out with divers and there were two women who were professional models underwater, and they had those skin diving fins that were really long. They had these pink outfits in different colors, and they had a mask that was completely clear. So you could see them, all of their belts, all of their gears, all of their gauges were nicely tucked in. It can make a huge difference in even a saleable picture and a contest winner if you've got your buddy that's equipped to do that. I was married to my first dive buddy for a long time, but so now I go looking for anyone that wants to go diving with me that kind of knows how their body works in the water. In photographing women underwater, which I've done a lot of for 20 years now, I really appreciate people who are dancers, women who are dancers, women who do anything with their body kinetics. They understand how movement can make such a difference. And if you can get you know, a nice outfit for them, your pictures are just going to look great. So everything else about it is fantastic. The diver's okay. I mean, it's a great shot. No doubt about it. Okay, so then pleasure of color and harmony, contrast, texture, rule of thirds. And so when I put the / there and I say none, that means this is ready to go win awards. So this is gorgeous photograph of Harlequin shrimp. Fantastic. The color, the contrast, the rule of thirds is off to the right a little bit, not the dead center. Nice lighting. It looks like the lighting's mostly from the right, but there's a fill on the left. One of the things that I do is my right-hand strobe is at 2x or 3 times the power of my left-hand strobe. So my left-hand strobe is only to fill in and to make sure the shadows aren't too deep. And my right-hand strobe is the primary one. You can also move your right-hand strobe closer in the case of macro and leave your left-hand strobe further back if you don't want to have to mess with you know, lighting ratios and that kind of thing. But it's definitely something to think about, even to put your light behind. In this case, it's the animal itself. There's nothing, I mean, it is just a beautiful animal on a beautiful piece of coral. So a lot of the contest judges are going to look at it as, I've kind of seen it. And then the question is, what have you added? This is the most important thing I'm going to say tonight. What's the value added for you as a photographer to what was already a beautiful thing? Think about that for a minute. So that means if you are adding the value, this is already beautiful, right? This is all you had to do is compose it correctly and light it right. F8 and be there, or F16 and be there, whatever it is, right? So think about that when you're trying to win awards, if you are, or if you just want a gorgeous picture to put on I would put that on my wall. That's gorgeous. Very nicely done. Behavior in the environment. So you've got a couple of shrimp here on, I don't know all the details of what that's sitting on top of. So that's fantastic. Because of the whiteness of their nature, you know, the environment for what they're on is really important. What they're doing is really important. I would crop a little bit off the bottom and the top maybe and the left to get that energy. So to put this in that 3/4 perspective point of view. And that would give you a little bit more impact. And then I would move the lights around. I would go put my light coming from behind to give it a nice rim light, and then just fill in the foreground with my right strobe. So I have a long arm on both of them, and I just kind of work with that to make it just a little bit better. Again, I'm not going to critique because I'm not going to say that that picture sucks or whatever. I'm always going to say this is good, but this is what you can do to make it better. And that's what you should do with every one of your photographs. Compare yourselves and look at a lot of underwater photography. Go to Wet Pixel and take a look at some of the best photographers. The reason why you joined a club is because you can now become aware of some of the best people. Alex Mustard, go watch his videos. Just sit there all night and watch his videos, and he talks and critiques about everything. And he's the judge of underwater, all the underwater photography contests, and a great book. If you need a beginner's book in underwater photography, Alex Mustard's the one to get. And it sounds like it's spelled just like it sounds. Environment gesture, fantastic. You've got, I don't know if he's digging a hole there, what's quite happening. It is on the rule of thirds kind of thing. So there's the eye there, but the lighting's not that exciting. It looks like ambient light. I'm guessing, just guessing. But it lacks kind of a story other than, hey, you got really close and you got the face instead of the butt of an animal, which is always, and some kind of behavior interacting with some other animal, like the previous one with the shrimp and the mouth, would definitely make a difference. The environment, the pygmy seahorse, one of the hardest things to photograph. What I didn't realize about the pygmy seahorses is they eat the polyps from the fan they're on and extrude it into their body. So a scientist that I did a lot of research with then put pygmy seahorses at birth into a tank, put them on different colored sea fan, and they then ingested and then decorated and colored themselves completely different. Their whole job is to camouflage. So the behavior, the environment, the texture, the juxtaposition of the animal in its environment, fantastic. It can be cropped a little tighter. And the big thing is it's missing the face that is clearly defined. I know where the face is, but a lot of other people are, who have seen that money shot of the front facing one. And also just a little extra thing when it comes to pygmy seahorses and such. They don't have eyelids, but the strobes do not harm them. The reason why every dive place that has pygmy seahorses and every dive guide that allows you to photograph them or leads you to them tells you not to sit there for more than 3 or 4 frames is because you upset them and their balance. If they fall off of that fan, they get eaten immediately. And then that dive guide that you have been there for one moment to get your picture is going to be left without a pygmy seahorse to show the rest of the people. And you've got led to the death of a pygmy seahorse. So it's not doing any harm, but do, count your pictures and wait for the right moment when everything gets the best that it possibly can. This one's really nice. I like the textures, the color, the mood. Again, we've got an animal in its environment, nice bokeh background, out of focus. So it's a nice selective focus is the term for this, meaning that the subject's in perfect focus. The background's nicely bokeh'd out. The word bokeh is Japanese for basically out of focus. Usually it shows the ring shape of the aperture in circles form. And it's very apparent, usually in macro photography and that kind of thing. I like to do macro photography where you do have the environment behind it lit, but not in focus. That's the trick. So I'll sometimes back off my f/24 kind of thing, unless I'm doing super macro, and I'll go back like this shot and, go to f8 or something like that so that I can throw that background pretty cleanly out of focus, or even brighter if I can. So cropped it a little bit tighter. I think that would help it. And it's sort of a plain portrait, a nice one, but a little bit plain. You know, obviously the value added here is these are the mandarin fish are just spectacular photograph. So you got color, you got composition, you got a black background. And the black background kind of obscures the environment. Now, what I do know about the mandarin fish is the backgrounds usually stink. It's usually like a parking garage looking place with a bunch of junk from off of a pier. So yeah, that's probably good that you got this isolated that way, and you've got the mating behavior. So that's really a cool picture. The behavior, gesture, color, juxtaposition, everything about this just screams wonderful. You've got the environment, so that black sand in the background, and you know, it's just a beautiful, award-winning photograph, I would suggest. Crop it a little bit tighter on the left and the right, just a little bit, make a square almost. Just a suggestion. Of course, now I am also a photojournalist, which means I was printing for newsprint. So I'm always tighter, 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 closer, closer. Sometimes you do need to back up and get the environment in. I've had to actually manually train myself to think about the long shot, the wide shot. When I start the photograph, I start with the wide establishing shot. Also for video, this is a good idea. Go to the medium shot where you can see a diver close up or an animal close up, and then go for the close up like this, where you drill down to. So every dive you go to, think of it as a wide, medium, and close up shot. And you know, you have to bring the gear to be able to do that. I put a GoPro on top of my camera at all times and just turn it on and go diving. And that way, if I've got something like the whale shark, I've got the still photograph, but I've also got the other. This was nice. The behavior is cute. They're looking at each other. Rule of thirds. They're right at the axis points of all that. What critique? None. There's a lot of light in front light, a little backlight, and then just the fill would have made the sponge not quite so apparent in the picture. Potentially it could have ruined everything else. So yeah, no, it's humor. It's fun. It's great. This one's humorous because the animal's humorous. I think the animal in the environment, that's good too. But it needs a bit of cropping. I mean, the environment's good to have in there, especially, you know, these little corals, the brain coral and the star and all that kind of stuff. That's nice to have in there. And I probably would have waited till it got here somehow, maybe, and then just made a picture that's that sort of face on. With puffers, they are curious, but here's my theory in photographing all small animals. Get down low, come in slow, and wait. They're going to come look at you. They're going to go disappear behind a rock. Then you're going to wait maybe 10 minutes. They're going to come back out. They're going to get curious a second time. You might get a picture, and then they're going to go away. And they'll come back the third time, and then they'll stay there forever because they realize you're not a threat to them. Never move closer, never move quickly, never go above their eye line to scare them. Never an aggressive move. And that will lead to a lot more face pictures than butt pictures. This is a cute, you know, wonderful picture, just not quite the award winner. Gesture, harmonies, colors. Obviously, the subject matter is spectacular. The environment's wonderful. It's pretty much centered. You know, I think the reflection just makes it fantastic. It's really, I'm not going to critique this because it just is a beautiful photograph. I'd be proud to have made it myself. Could there be a little bit more light over here? Perhaps. There's Mirrorlex's coming out with a strobe that you can set off remotely. You can also set off remote strobes with light triggers. Put one over on the ground as you're shooting something like you know, mermaid in the water, and it can lead to some even better photographs. This is quite spectacular, though. Kudos. Another nice one. The hand on the shoulder, not so great. I would have her gesture forward and extend her like she's extending her feet in a dancer's pose. She looks like she's hugging herself. The hair, I want long-haired women, and I want fabric that's going to go out. I usually have a handler who then fluffs the hair, pulls out the fabric, and then gets out of frame. And then the dancer acts like a matador, just kind of moving their bodies around. So the scale, gesture, reflection, the color, the dynamics, the composition. Composition doesn't quite work as well as it could, although it's a fantastic photograph. So I really am reluctant to say much more. Again, same thing here. Fantastic color composition, reflection, gesture. The leading line of the body, maybe diagonally, might be a little bit better. The hair, if we're going to the left, would have been just killer. And then the fabric, I have them toss out the fabric and toss out the hair, get in position, and hopefully they can hold their breath a very long time. But that's a wonderful photograph. I'm guessing these are in the springs. If someone could tell me in the chat, I'd be delighted to find out. Foreground, background, scale. The diver could be better dressed and posed, but what's that?
Was in the Genie Spring.
Jenny?
Those are-
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Nice pictures. Yeah, great place to go. I'm trying to get a model to go into Jug Hole in Ichetucknee, to go into that shaft of light. I'm looking for a nude model if I can find it with fabric. That's kind of what I've been working on for a long time. Yeah, so you've got nice rule of thirds going on. You've got, the diver, the action. If you're wearing a different color hat and the hand wasn't quite so apparent, and some of the equipment could be, minimized. But it's a great picture. Wonderful photograph. And again, the question that I'm going to ask you to ask is it the subject matter that makes this exciting photograph, or is it how I photographed it? So your value added is what judges are looking for, because they've seen every animal and every beautiful creature there is, right? So you can't just get away with just photographing a beautiful animal. You got to do it in a way that they haven't seen done before. So again, getting a light around the back, taking the strobe on the left to half power compared to the full power on the right. I leave my strobes at about a third or quarter power. So I have the third power and then a quarter power on my left. And that gives me a nice little, sunny side. It's also what they use in all studio photography. So it's called Rembrandt lighting, 3-point lighting. If you hear that term before, 3-point lighting is the brightest light on the right, because we only have one sun in the sky, a fill light on the left, and then a hair light or a backlight behind. So if you can get when you're doing macro stuff, if you can get a loose strobe that's triggered by light flashing, you can just put one behind it, or you can use, sometimes I'll use a video light for that purpose. And the background's kind of overpowered, but the point of this thing is, now if this were vertical, it could be a little bit more, powerful, I think. Again, juxtapositions, color, textures, behaviors, fantastic. A little loose on the lighting. Again, this is all front lighting, right? So front lighting gets to be a documentary type photograph, not a award-winning photograph. So everything else you got there, just take that little bit extra effort and see if you can, work it out in the pool with just a couple of stuffed, or plastic fishes, right? And then see if you can work on how you put your strobes, where you position them to get better photographs underwater. So I've added this to it. So if you download this, these are the qualities that ChatGPT said that judges of contests are looking for. And I would agree with most of these. Technical proficiency, environmental awareness, I think, is one that I didn't talk about so far, highlighting the beauty and fragility of underwater world. In fact, most competitions have an environment category. So where you see plastic underwater and that kind of thing, where you make an environmental storytelling, journalistic type photograph, when you witness things that shouldn't be in the water, that can be something really important that does win awards quite frequently. And also make sure that you take whatever that is out of the water so it doesn't mess anything else up. Here's a bunch more. So I just put all these in there so that you could have, access to all that yourself. And that's the end of that. So I've got a lot of pictures but I'd like to hear your guys' comments or questions that you might have at this point.
Just a second. I know we have several people in the audience that had photographs in here. Do any of you want to admit and want to have any questions about what you saw?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I had the little piggyback shrimp, and I had a question on that.
Yes.
Maybe if you go back to that, I don't know if you can or not.
Let me see if I can.
That was taken in Raja Ampat, and it was those are actually anemones.
Aha.
And I've only seen this type of shrimp on those anemones before.
This one?
No,
No,
a little
no.
further up. The piggyback.
Oh, here.
There, that one right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah, those are really interesting. They almost look albino, huh?
I don't know what's going on here, but I suspect that it's my triple X, but I agree with the lighting, and I was doing double strobe, and I had them at the 2 and the 5. I'm sure I did, or the 10 and 2 or
2
whatever.
and 10. Yeah.
I can see how if I had turned off one or pulled it on back, it would have been more dramatic, because
Yep.
that anemone, the diagonal anemone,
Yep.
has very little dynamic range.
Yeah.
That's all.
It's a difficult photograph to get, exposure wise too.
Mhm.
What can give you the advantage is I pretty much have my setup set right when I go down. And so definitely here a backlight, if you have a dive buddy, get a slave strobe, just a small one. And all you need is just to hold it somewhere near the subject, right? And then you get your main light. In this case, I would probably put it up at noon on a clock dial to shoot to get down, because it's going to reveal the texture of this and all of this, right? And without being pasty white. So right now, all the tonality is just one tone, right? So it's monochromatic. If you backlight it, you then you separate it from its background and you added rim light to it is what you're really doing. Then if you've got a top light at 12 o'clock, that light cascading down makes it fall off near the bottom. So you'll have a bright spot up near the faces and isolating it. A snoot could be used to just light that. But in the environment here, I would do exactly what you've done here, but just, move a light up here and then move a hair light behind.
Yeah, I would probably
leave the other strobe off.
I was probably shooting at about f16. The dark background would indicate that. I really liked what little bit of bokeh I have in the background, but I think a little bit more would have added some interest. If I had gone to 11 or f11, I would have had a little bit more background.
What was your shutter speed at the time?
250th probably, or 200th probably.
Okay, so here's a trick for you. Go to a 30th, because your strobes are 10,000th of a second. Okay,
right.
So you'll get that bokeh, and in fact, you'll get a little blurry bokeh even if you have movement, right? So I typically, if I want the background environment, now 90% of the time I don't, because it's a bunch of seashells and crustaceans and just ugly stuff, right? But if you do want it, open up the shutter speed.
Yeah, that's something you mentioned something that I've mentioned to other people as well, is that when you're shooting macro and you're using strobes, the shutter speed doesn't help that much. And you just like you pointed out, because the strobe is 99% of the 90% of the illumination, and it's only on for just a fraction of a second.
The only time that I is when I'm pointing up at the sun, just shooting a macro. Then you can go to f16, f22, and then 250 of the second is necessary in order to get that starburst of that, lens flare to work for you. That I forget what shells now is. There's some kind of name for that.
I've got one for you on the mating mandarin fish.
Yes.
We did this dive in Limbe maybe 4 nights in a row. It's a dusk dive. It lasts for about 20-25 minutes.
Yep.
And I really like this particular image, but the image I liked even better was about 2 frames later when the eggs were visible in the water, and I was not able to get a focus lock on them. So it's quite humbling to your own self when you know that, oh, that's a cool picture. I'm glad I got that. And then you look at the frame before or after and you go, damn, I missed the shot of a lifetime.
Yeah, the money shot.
That's the fishtail that we all tell coming back, right?
Oh,
you should have seen the one that got away, But this is a wonderful photograph. I really like it. I've got one of just a portrait, but it's in full regalia and spread out, and it's against a black background too. Where I photographed them was in Bali on the Palladian, which is Wakatobi's ship. And we were literally underneath the boat, and on the ground below us were, electrical fixtures pictures and then all of these animals, there were about 20 of them, I guess, were all in this really dusty, mucky thing. And then of course you have to sit there and wait till the sun sets, and then they go to town. And I got a couple of battle pictures, but the backgrounds were just so busy. And, locking focus when you're working with, nighttime shooting and that kind of stuff, it's a challenge for sure.
And then one picture down, the octopus in his shell.
Yes, love it.
What I learned about this experience here, I probably stayed with this guy for maybe 15 minutes as he crawled along. And there's several other frames in which he's in a really interesting position. The learning experience is that sometimes you just have to wait patiently for the image to give you what you want.
And you have to have a very patient buddy, because if your buddy wants to go off somewhere, I always make sure that my buddy is somehow beholden to me. Let me see if I can find. So there's my pygmy seahorse.
Yeah.
And when I photographed it, I couldn't see it. Like literally, this is the size of my thumbnail or fingernail even. And then I got one of octopus here somewhere. Oh, there's the mandarin.
Yeah.
Oh, it's nice.
So you can see that background is just a mess, though. It was just a horrible mess, but worked out.
Well, that's where they lived,
Yeah, that's it. Oh, and here's the octopus. Yeah, I mean, the longer an octopus, I could spend all day with them. If you haven't seen the movie, The Octopus, My Octopus Teacher.
What a great show.
Oh yeah, it made me cry every time, but yeah, that's kind of cool.
I
And
wonder how many octopus they really had in that.
it was one guy actually. I
Sure?
think a friend of mine interviewed him and did some background research. He's a journalist, so yeah, that was a real deal. Some of these are over processed. I'm going back to redo them again now that I know a little bit better.
That one is a spectacular one. I've had
Thank you.
a few framed pictures like that.
Yeah, you get some opportunities, bumphead parrotfish aggregating and then spawning. That was really tough to photograph, but definitely worthwhile. Yeah, here they are. So they literally in Palau, this is once a year, they go back and forth for 2 days straight, and then they shoot up to the surface and then deposit. So you are covered in sperm for the next 3 days because it doesn't come off. It's really quite, yeah, it's kind of disturbing, but a couple of hot showers, you should be all right. But that's why we dive, right? This is one of the most fun ones in the Galapagos. Just because they look like they're looking at me, and it's just a wall of fish, and I just waiting there, and they didn't want to come near me, and I didn't want to come near them. This is kind of unusual. This is Galapagos too. These are all Galapagos here, or these are Galapagos. Maybe that's Cocos. Yeah, Cocos Island. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is a pregnant tiger shark, and that's in the Galapagos. Cocos. I'm sorry. This is Cocos. Cocos. Yeah, I've got them all labeled here. I should just look at my labels, right? And then you look for things like color contrasts. This looked like it was going to be a nothing picture, and then I got back. I'm like, wow, I like the colors. That was a treacherous dive. The waves were just too much. And so recently I went to Tiger Beach, and I kind of like this. I mean, a sense of humor, goes a long way. It got a lot of likes on Facebook, and then everybody likes to see a picture of a shark, but but if they're singing in chorus with each other, that's kind of cool. Yeah. Or if all three of them get together for a group portrait, and then if you can get down their gut. So I actually got to feed them as well at Tiger Beach. So
yeah, you mentioned Roca Partida a number of times. That dive damn near killed me.
Yeah, it will. We almost lost 2 people on that trip, including the dive master. So after coming up from the whale shark, that's the whale shark that you saw on the thing. I've got a new filter that I'm getting to get rid of the noise now. Topaz makes some great filters for that. I don't know what I was doing.
Can I make a comment about Topaz denoise AI? And I know you're into AI anymore. Is that it's available, and On One has got one as well that does probably about the same thing. They're probably licensing the same technology, I'm guessing. But there are a lot of sliders in that, and you have to be
Mm.
very careful. Otherwise,
You lose the
you,
detail.
you start ending up with wax instead of flesh.
Yes, yes, this is exactly true of this photograph. So every time I did it until just recently, so Topaz has been updating furiously. So for their scaling software, it's fantastic. I do a lot of pictures on Mid-Journey and the files are 1 or 2 megabytes. Okay. I've made 20 by 24 inch prints from them. That gives you an idea of what kind of scale you can do with them. The difficulty with this and denoising is there's a lot of noise in there naturally. There is all the little spots and all the little textures, and texture looks like noise. So for any software to define what is noise and what is texture, it ends up making things look waxy that shouldn't be. Here's the thing. If you have a great photograph, to me, this is a fun photograph, you know, as a document of presence, right? Nobody cares whether it was grainy or not. The D-Day invasion photograph, that was grainy as hell. It had been sitting in salt water before it was processed and developed and printed. And nobody cares because that's bloody D-Day. That's the best photograph. It had motion blur in it. Technically, it was a piece of crap, but as a photograph, it's, you know, iconic. So don't worry about some of the technical things. I mean, certainly get the best quality you can out of your camera. Always shoot raw underwater. It gives you a lot more latitude, and you'll thank me later. And then I always go every night. I sit down my laptop and I process, and I have a very structured. I have year, month, date, and then I have a folder. This is Palau, year, month, date. The folder goes in there. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. And every night I go through and I go through Bridge like this, and I'll pick just my 5-star pictures. And I'll sit there and rank them, and I'll just eliminate the ones that I know before I even sit down, because I know what my best shots are. You know, you can imagine I was scrambling to get to look at what this looked like. Sometimes you just shoot like this is snorkeling. Shot 10,000 photographs in a couple of days. And this was the one that really worked because of that contrast in the foreground, the background, and that silver at the top and the diver in the background. So that kind of made it work. The movement of the colors juxtaposed against each other. You know, this is one of those animals that's just kind of pretty on its own, so you don't have to do much. Or you start following a cuttlefish around for long enough, you'll get every color of the rainbow. I go back and forth as to whether I think that diver's bubbles help it or hurt it. I think there's a sense of scale. This thing was 1.5 feet long, which is one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. And then think about the long shot. I mean, this shark behavior, you know, it's hurting up these tuna or whatever the heck they are. And nobody thinks about taking the shot as you're sitting decompressing and just look down. There might be a picture there. Or as you're going on your way to, hook in on Palau, there's just a school that goes by. Oh, great. And then think about, using wide angles with a foreground object, background object. Framing is important to think about. Think about shapes and behaviors as working together in unison with each other. This I didn't even notice until I got back, but the cave entrance was the shape of a fish. This is a 120-foot cave in where's that Palau? And it's got some coral up here, and it just worked. And then of course the diver with the long fins and without any hanging stuff off his belt make a fantastic combination. Then this little guy, I thought he was just seeing his reflection, but no, he bit the guy behind me and he had to get 3 stitches. He was defending his nest, and I'd never seen one of these before and didn't realize the little hole, the dirt down below was a nest. Again, long shots, also leading lines, tells a story about it going off in the abyss, and you get a sense of scale and size of the environment you're sitting in. And then if you got a diver juxtaposed against something, you can also do the same thing. Behaviors like this emperor shrimp on top of, I forget what exactly nudibranch that is, but they're huge. They were the size of my hand or maybe even bigger. And then I noticed the 2 emperor ships. There's a male and a female, I guess. I'm not a great botanist with this stuff, or not botanist, marine biologist, but I've started to figure things out over time. And then, encircle things. This is that idea, one strobe, right? And then there's just a little fill off to kiss off to the side. That's it. I did have to spend quite a bit of time just kind of darkening down. So I call this a wedding party, and this is all the extras, And then this is a strobe at noon, straight overhead. So it shoots down, lights the part behind, and gives it a nice, so shadow defines form. So this feels like it's three-dimensional, and it's enough out of focus at f11 or something like that, I think it is, to be able to give that, make it a nice photograph. And then again, not going for f22 because then all this junk would be in focus, and then looking for a color and waiting and waiting and waiting. This I just love, and it's just a sponge. I mean, I started a collection of what I call my floral garden. This is one strobe to the top right, way up at 1 o'clock position. And there might have been a strobe down below me, actually. Sometimes I'll do that. But if this is a 15-foot stop in Wakatobi, and just waited, you got to sit there and decompress anyway, so might as well have a good time doing it. And then you look for things that people don't normally see, or juxtapose things that, bring you a color palette that makes interesting photographs. Or like this guy, I didn't even see him. And then all of a sudden, when I did, I said, that looks like the guts of some human or something. What the heck's going on here? Or this one.
Definitely got polyps.
Yeah, right. You need to get that inspected. I think you need to get a colostomy or something. I don't know. This guy, I watched, it's a cleaning station, right? It's a little cave in the side of a wall dive. And I just watched as this puffer goes. It went in the gill and came out the mouth and went and did it again. And two of its other friends did it. So I saw it the first time, like, oh man. And I just waited.
I saw one go all the way through from one gill to the other side.
Yeah. There's a pass through there, So it's a good opportunity because they're distracted that they're going to sit there and do whatever. Again, stay low, go slow, and wait. That's the only way you're going to get the picture. Now, if you're on a drift wall dive, this can be a challenge. So I usually have where it's allowed, I'll use a reef hook very carefully, or I'll use just a metal pole. Well, I'll stick it between two rocks that aren't coral, aren't alive, and just hold myself there if I get in a situation like this was. This was a little bit of a current, not much, but I stood there 20 minutes waiting for this to happen. So the same with this too. Most of the pygmies are down around 70, 60, 80 feet. And sometimes with a lot of breeze, because that's where they get the nutrients, is wherever the big fish. I figured out, if you want to go see them, you got to go to Galapagos. Places where there's current, that's where the big stuff is, because that's what they do. They're filter feeders, or they're that kind of thing. And yeah, so use the walls as a compositional element, and give your dive body the brightest light you can give them. Because look at how that just touches that coral right there. It just made the picture for me. And then look for textures and unusual juxtapositions of color and texture, shape and form. Those are all things that kind of work for you. And then unusual things like the eyes of this sea scallop, that a lot of people, you can tell that story. And then people are like, what the hell is that? And if you do video of it, it's electric. So it actually undulates and, like a video game kind of thing. So, well, that's pretty much it. Is there any other questions anybody has?
Perfect timing. We're going to need to cut it off in a couple of minutes,
Okay.
But this has been so formative, what you've shown here, and so perfect for what we've been discussing right now. We've been looking at photo contest rules, video contest rules, and the deportment of it, but also question ourselves about, well, how are we going to actually, we have our own in-house judging, and we'd like
Right.
our judges to be able to understand how to judge better, maybe. And this was good.
Yeah, well, feel free to take that PowerPoint, just kind of look at it if you want to. And I'm starting to use ChatGPT or Bing. If you're going to start AI, I recommend everybody does it. So what I've done it for already is I gave it a list of all the places I've been diving. And I said, what are 10 more places I need to go to next? Tell me about where they are, who the best dive operation there is. Give me a list of airplane flights and what I'd have to do to navigate that space. It'll give you an entire itinerary with everything, including pricing, if that's available online. It will do it for you in about 1 minute and 30 seconds. So if you have not tried this before, Bing is the product by Microsoft. You can install it on your phone. It's an app. You can use it on the desktop as well. And you just ask it a question. You start off saying, I want you to play the role of being a, for helping me make a dive travel plans for this next summer. I'm going to go to make 10 dives in 10 different places. I haven't been to the Philippines yet. Give me 10 places to go in the Philippines. Tell me the top 10 dive operations. Tell me the top 10, features of that place. And when I'm going to a place like Palau, I'm going to research the heck out of that. What I've done in the past is I'll just go on Google and best pictures Palau underwater. That's it. Then I'll go say what's been done there. And then I'm going to find out where those animals and where that thing happened, what behavior is unique. Like the mandarin fish was something that obviously the dive guides know all this. Also tip your dive guides big time. I've got a guy named Ketut in Bali. Every time I go to Bali, I'm with him for 2 weeks, just him and me. It only cost me an extra $500 a week to get him solo, just me. And oh my God, is it worth it? I go with, so he's in all those pictures of the manta rays in Bali that you saw. That's him with a light, so, you got a trained diver who's very good at what he does. And it was just him and me. It's well worth the price. And he would show me where the pygmy seahorses are. So I literally gave him a shoot list of 12 animals I had that I'd never photographed before. And we were done in a week because he knew exactly where they were. He knows them by name, location, because he grew up there. So Aquamarine is the company that I went with. I highly, highly recommend them, because it's all native guides. So she is a British woman that runs the company. Everybody who works for her are natives. That means that they grow up there. They went to her because she gave free snorkeling to all elementary and high school kids. And during COVID, she cleaned up the reefs of Bali with over 3,000 people and collected, 200 tons of plastics. So this woman is a goddess. I always look for people that are doing that. The folks at Wakatobi are stewards of the environment. They are literally the marine patrol for that area. They pay the fishermen not to fish in Wakatobi. You're going to spend $6,500 for a week there, but it's the best money and the best food you'll ever have. And you take a private plane from Bali to get there. So if anybody wants to link up with me and go diving, let me know. Or if you got any trips, you want an extra photographer, or you want to let me go for free and I'll teach you all I know. I'm game.
Come join us in Philippines next year on the Atlantis Azores. That would be
fantastic. Thank you. And you're also welcome at the SWUPS meetings as well. And I know we're talking about maybe doing some coordinated events together. We've done competitions against other underwater photography groups. And then we've had an outside professional judge the competition, which can be kind of fun.
I told Craig and I guess Betsy and a few other people about the possibility of having a club versus club contest with South Florida group. I got
to tell you, they're really good. If you think I'm good, there's like 10 of me over there, including Linda.
I know. Do we have any questions from out there in Zoom land? Justin or David or John, anybody have a question?
I just want to say thanks. I really enjoyed the program. It's great how you put descriptive traits of what makes a good photo, because it's a hard thing to quantify. And I've tried to do that over the years for different classes or presentations. And so it's real good to take a look at someone else's traits that make a good photo.
Yeah.
So we appreciate.
Yeah. And if you have any you want to include, let me know, because I'm actually working on those 5 books right now. I'm going to finish up this underwater one right away. In fact, the pictures that you saw in there don't even include the last half a dozen dives. So I got to get it back down to 100 again, because I just keep diving. I went to the Red Sea, went to the cenotes in Mexico, and just, it just keeps on giving. So I've got the life for sure. So I want to pass along any blessings. I got all I need in the world. All I want to do is make the world a better place for the environment. And you guys, by photographing it, are champions of spreading the word of what a magical, mystical, wonderful, organic, natural place it is, and how direly we need to protect every ounce of it, including the coral reef bleaching and things like that. If you can volunteer to be a part of it. In fact, one of the things that happened in the Keys is the water wasn't that hot, but the water from Texas that came on the Gulf side was hotter, and it went in as a reverse thermocline. So Stephen Frink, if you look on Facebook, if you follow him, he had a picture of the thermocline at the bottom of the heat water, and the top was the cool water. And of course, all the corals on the heat side. So that 101, 102 degree temperature is something that we need to document. We need to get our journalist friends out there. If they don't have pictures, donate your pictures to all the journalism people out there to let them know that, these are issues they need to think about and talk about. So I've been mentoring the current underwater photographer at the Miami Herald since I worked there for 15 years. And so I'm having him come to the meeting tomorrow night. He's doing what's going to end up being like a 15-page Miami Herald spread with all of his photographs, going out with the scientists at Rosenstiel School, and they're doing studies right now, going out with the coral conservation groups in the Keys, and then around, because South Florida is, that's our coral reef right there, and you all have some of that still over in the Texas area, and it's something we really have to protect and think about. We've got yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
we're
Yes.
this is last month's. Oh, okay. Okay.
We're gonna show one more now.
One more, yeah, we got one more to show. That was last month's. All right. Thank you, everyone. I think we're gonna call it a wrap. Anybody, Craig, any comments?
No, except we had to move inside. It got too cold. Sorry. Nice to see all those tropical pictures, and thanks to everybody. What a great presentation. I think that gave everybody a lot to think about. And you know, I would just like to see more of them, because despite all that detail, the mind of a judge is still a mystery. So thanks a lot, guys. See you later.
Thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you very much, Rick. Rick, would you send me your mailing address, please?
For
Just
physical
text
mail?
it to me, or yeah, send me an
Sure.
email
Okay.
or something with your mailing address.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you
Great
so
being with you
much.
guys. My pleasure. Thank you. Have a good one.